Thanks for joining us for What's New at CFI, where we bring you insights from our latest courses and behind-the-scenes conversations with subject matter experts. Get ahead and stay ahead with the latest from CFI.
Welcome to the What's New at CFI podcast. I'm Asim Khan with CFI, and I'm joined today by Glenn Hopper. You're here to talk to us about your new course in AI-enhanced financial analysis. Would be lovely if you could take a minute and tell us about yourself.
Sure. I guess I got pulled into the AI game because I wrote a book a couple years ago on leveraging AI in finance. And of course, back then, it was a very niche book that was just really targeted at finance leaders and technologists who were using Python and SQL and everything it took back then. Since the onset of generative AI, suddenly this thing that just us nerds were talking about before, now everybody's talking about it. So just because I had a little bit of a background in it before, I've really been focused, I'd say in the last year and a half, primarily on working with companies, kind of moving away from my traditional role as a CFO and consultant to now really helping companies implement this new technology in their companies. And also I've been working a lot on training individual contributors and finance leaders how to use AI in their regular workflows.
Excellent. Now, we don't mind plugging other people's work. The title of your book, once again?
It's Deep Finance, Corporate Finance in the Information Age.
Excellent. Available at fine bookstores everywhere.
That's right.
Okay, good. And then you've been working with CFI on developing AI-related courses. I recently took your course on AI-related financial analysis. I thought it was really great. The kind of, here's what impressed me most. And I had a very limited background in this. I've played around some with ChatGPT, the free versions. It's that you can prompt ChatGPT using everyday colloquial English. You don't need to know jargon. Is that fair? Or
Absolutely. And that's really, that's the thing to me. Even we're still in the nascent phase of this technology, but what you can already see as the technology gets better, we're going to be able to trust it more and do more things with it. But what we're already seeing, and one of the greatest strengths that this will give us, is the ability, it sort of democratizes not just data, but data science and sort of the deeper analysis that we can do. Because it used to be if you wanted to do anything beyond Excel, you had to enter the world of SQL and Python or R and programming languages. So, the barrier to entry was very high. But with these new chatbots, instead of writing code, you can actually interact with them in human language. And that's going to open up capabilities that, it's going to superpower employees and leaders who are using it.
There's a lot to talk about there, unpack, as they say. So hallucination is a problem in these early days of AI. You ask it a question and it gives you some answer that has no bearing on, or maybe it's a bit of an unintentional misdirection. But I noticed in your course, you submitted some Excel files, recast so a machine could read them, and then asked ChatGPT to perform some analysis, but you could see in the background that it was writing Python code, right? So its work is verifiable in that sense.
Yeah, and that's really, so large language models are just, they're like the auto predict on your email or your text. It's just natural language processing trying to give within its context window what it thinks is the statistically most likely response. So they were designed to do one very specific thing. Now, there have been emergent capabilities that have come out of these large language models where they can do some math because they've been exposed to it, but they're not doing math the way humans do math. So if you're going to be doing financial statements, I think especially about a public company where CFO, you're signing off on your financial statements. Do you want to trust a black box that isn't skilled at math and doing those? And the answer on that is no. So the way around that is to build in other capabilities. So instead of the large language model trying to do math just within its normal context, it actually, under the hood, will write a Python script that will do the math for it. So, it's like asking a a cobbler to bake you a pie, the LLM to do math. But then if the cobbler lives next to a baker and can use the services of the baker and integrate them together, that's what we get out of the Python. So, we're still in trust but verify with the responses that we get from LLMs, but this is a huge hurdle overcome in being able to do kind of complex data analysis.
After I went through your course, I had a look at some of the online job boards, and they're replete with bids for Python programmers and SQL people. Is that going to go away at some point?
God, that's one of the hundreds of $1 million questions that I'm hearing around AI right now. People are trying to figure out, should I still learn to code if AI is going to be able to write code for me? And, I would say, yes, it's good to still learn to code. And the reason for that is, even if AI is able to generate code for you, I think by understanding what's going on under the hood and sort of understanding the nature of the program, that you become better at identifying, at engineering these software applications. And again, trust but verify. You may ask the large language model to write a code for you. It may have misunderstood something because you didn't phrase it correctly, so it goes down a wrong road. So if you don't know the basics of programming, you wouldn't know how to begin checking the code that the large language model wrote. So I think it's still valuable. But the great thing is, in reality, how many FP&A people are going to take the time and energy and effort when they are already domain experts in finance or accounting? How many are going to actually take the time to then get a whole new skill set where they're programming and writing SQL queries and all that? So, I think AI has the ability to bridge that gap and open up some functionality, but to be really a superstar in it, I think having both skill sets, to me, that would make you a rock star in the future,
Excellent. And so I guess those computer science departments at universities aren't going away anytime soon.
Yeah, one that I follow because it was one of the most popular early online courses is CS50 from Harvard, and David Malin is the professor in that, and he's, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands, millions of people have taken this course, and he's a pretty forward-looking guy, and he early on adopted in. So he's teaching, and they built their own chatbot that could debug code and answer student questions and everything. So instead of running from it, they're embracing it and incorporating it into the classroom. And I think that's what you're going to see in CS50, where you have these co-pilots who can QC your code and can help write code and make suggestions and, help you bug fix and stuff like that. So I think there's, never say never, but I do believe that the need for programmers is going to be around, but they're going to be much more efficient and quicker now with tools like this.
That's great. And because we're the Corporate Finance Institute, let me get your comments on a recent New York Times article. You may have seen it, but the gist of it was that AI would eliminate part of the investment banking track the first 2 years, where the worst part of it, I think things have softened up since my day, but you're really just kind of like living in the office and building models, doing presentations and things like that around the clock. What's your view on that?
I think it will. And it's not just investment banking. Think about accountants and think about those entry roles where you're fresh out of school. You've got all this new education, but no practical application. So our way of entering the workforce and moving up and understanding the business better was, investment banking, certainly more than anyone. They work you to death, but the amount of exposure, you're just drinking from the fire hose in those first couple of years. But the nature of the work that was being done there is going to be some of the first that is really successfully automated. Anything that is just taking data, turning it into information that you can work with, so kind of the lowest level of that. And then I think at the bottom level, as stuff is automated there, it's going to ask us on the human level to provide a greater value, to get out of this in the foxhole tactical work and be expected to sooner than later be able to provide that strategic value. So that's going to present an interesting challenge to people. How can you strategically think if you bypass that entry level? So there's an educational component too, of how are you going to educate people to be able to provide that strategy without having the practical experience of doing what people do in their early stage of their career.
Well, exactly right, and that's was my critique of the article, and I think CFI generally would agree that to be a really good senior banker, you're a really good senior banker because you spent a lot of time when you as a junior banker in the weeds, analyzing companies, modeling their financials, and the slightest delta in the numbers gives you a lot of information, and you know what your client's up to and what they could use in terms of products and services from your firm. So if you cut out that first 2-3 years of the development process, you're not going to get a fully formed senior banker.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are so many paradigms that are going to have to shift with this technology because some jobs will just go away, some will be changed. People who've been, become deep level domain experts are going to have to think, okay, well, I did all that. Now I have to figure out how I'm also going to be able to use this new technology, and the trying to stay relevant and trying to stay ahead of the technology curve. It's it's always the case. Technology moves fast, but I'm an old guy now, and in my lifetime, I've never seen anything move as quickly as sort of the AI technology wave. So there's a lot changing, and I think a lot of people are kind of standing around now, reading news articles, wondering what they need to do, but it's kind of past time for people to be planning because those early adopters and the people out in front of the curve are about to get a massive advantage for those who are left behind. So there's a bunch of questions to be asked, but we need to adjust on the fly riding this wave,
I think the course that you developed is an excellent start for people in the financial field, and I encourage everyone to have a look at it. And Glenn Hopper, thank you so much for your time today. It's a pleasure chatting with you and getting your insights. We could have gone on for like an hour or two.
Yeah.
Maybe for another time. Okay.
Yeah. Well, this was great. Always loved talking to you, and happy to join you today.
Thank you. Glad to have you. Take care, Glenn.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. FinPod is brought to you by Corporate Finance Institute, the #1 rated online provider of finance and banking training, certifications, and productivity tools.